Hi guys. All right, we are starting chapter 17. We are still dealing with organisms that we may not truly consider animals, but again, because they are multicellular animals with eukaryotic cells, they're heterotrophs, and all kinds of other different characteristics, they will be considered animals. And this chapter covers phylum Arthropoda, the arthropods, and it is by far the largest group of living organisms on our planet. The little pie graph that I have over here is a representation of all living organisms, animals, or all of the animal kingdom, I guess I should say. And of this graph, see if I can circle it right, starting with this purple and going all the way all around all of that red, we are covering the arthropods, this chapter. This little section here, the light blue and this kind of orangish color, those are what we've done so far. And then after we get through most of this, then we'll do that little sliver of the darker blue. And so this chapter covers a lot. And the main reason that it covers so much is because the arthropods include insects. We will get to those kind of towards the end of the chapter. And they obviously, as you can see from the graph, they are the big chunk of phylum Arthropoda, but also of the animal kingdom. Now, with the arthropods, we will talk about arachnids. So that is spiders, scorpions, those kinds of things, crustaceans, and we will dissect a crawfish later on this week. The myriapods, those are like the centipedes, millipedes, and then of course the insects. So big group. And for today, I want to go over some of the characteristics, the common attributes that they all have. So this includes all the things that I just said, the crustaceans, the insects, the arachnids, all of those. So first of all, they all have an open circulatory system. Now they all have dorsal hearts. So their heart is on their back. So remember, they are down on all fours, or all six or all eight actually, and their heart is on their back. So I always remember dorsal is like a dorsal fin of a shark. So this is towards their back, and it is a pump just like any other heart, and it basically pumps blood over the organs, and they are bathed in the blood, and then the blood kind of pools down at the bottom of the animal, and then there's another kind of a pump down there that pumps the blood back up to that dorsal heart, and it starts all over again. So open circulatory system. They also have exoskeletons. This is the outer shell that we have talked about already, just with our different layers. Most exoskeletons are made of chitin. And we've talked about chitin before. Remember, that's in some of the cell walls of things like the fungus. It is a very strong, flexible carbohydrate. So it gives them a little bit, there's a little bit of give there, but it is still strong enough to protect them. Now, one thing to note about the exoskeleton is that it doesn't grow. And so as the arthropod itself grows, it must molt, or it must shed that exoskeleton and secrete a new one. And so probably around now, if you are somewhere where there are a lot of locusts or a lot of cicadas around your house, you will start finding the little shells of the cicadas like hanging on tree branches or tree trunks or around. And if you were looking close enough, you would see other exoskeletons, but those are the most obvious ones right now. And so they have to molt in order to grow. Notice, I think this was the first page that I have any on, I have tried to highlight the vocab words. So if you are going through and doing vocab, this will help you see that a little bit more. Okay, so those were the first two characteristics. Now, the next two, we have jointed appendages, and that is actually what the word arthropod means. Arthro deals with joints, and then the pod is still foot. So it's really saying jointed foot. But so they have jointed appendages, so that means they have legs that have joints that allow more movement. So these are much more active animals compared to what we have seen so far. They can climb, jump, pinch, run, pretty much do anything that your limbs can do because they have joints. And I've got a little drawing of different arthropod appendages over there. So they are, you can see kind of where they can bend, where they meet. Then the next characteristic is compound eyes. Not all arthropods have compound eyes. Some have simple eyes that are similar to yours, but some of them have these compound eyes. And a compound eye is thousands of lenses that surround like an orb almost is their eyeball because it kind of sticks out of their head. And this allows some arthropods to have an almost 360-degree field of view. So they basically can see behind themselves. It's one of the reasons that it is super hard to spot a fly because they can see you coming from any direction. You can't really sneak up on them. And so there's a picture of a fly, and I'm glad he's not that big in real life. He will see basically thousands of views from just a little bit of a different viewpoint of the same thing. And so it really helps him to have good vision and especially have an awareness of like predators that might be around them. Okay, last two characteristics, segmented bodies. Typically, arthropods have three body segments, a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. In that picture that I have over there on the side, the kind of orangish pink color is the head. The greenish, kind of light green color is the thorax, and then the blue is the abdomen. The head is where most of the sensory organs are. The thorax is mainly where any heart or kind of circulatory system is, any type of like a lung. The abdomen is more intestine for most animals or reproductive organs. And in lots of these, you actually have a fusing of the head and the thorax put together, and that is called the cephalothorax. In general, that is where the appendages are attached, so legs, wings, anything like that. So if you look at these guys, for the most part, it is all attached kind of in that green area. So for some of these, it is actually a cephalothorax. And then the nervous system. They have a fairly simple nervous system. It is a pair of ganglia, which are just kind of groups of nerve cells. And they're joined by two major nerves. And so you have two groups. Your brain has two hemispheres, two halves. So this is kind of like that, but not nearly as complex as your brain. But anyway, so these two pairs of ganglia that are joined by these two major nerves. And the brain's job is basically to interpret all of the information that is coming in from the appendages. What is around them? What are the conditions, the temperature? Some of them have the ability to sense the humidity in the air because it can affect their flying. Others can sense chemicals, can sense almost like infrared, so they can feel heat, and it helps them to hunt. For most of these animals, and again, you can kind of look back at that picture up there, most of them have antennae, and this is one of the major sensory appendages that's on their head. They use their antenna to smell, of course, but also as a sense of touch, and then all kinds of other sensors. Okay, so now our first group to talk about are the chelicerates. And it's hard to say, the chelicerates are kind of the creepy of the creepies. And these include horseshoe crabs, which is the picture right here in the middle. If you don't know what that is a horseshoe crab, as well as the arachnids. So spiders, ticks, mites, scorpions. Obviously, you probably will recognize that spider over to the left of the screen, and then there's a little tick up there kind of above my head right now. The thing that these guys all have in common is that they have appendages called chelicera, and these chelicera are claw-like pinchers. They can be very small, or they can be very, very prominent. And so, but that pincher as one of their first appendages is the combining factor for the chelicerates. Now, as far as the structure goes, chelicerates have 4 pairs of walking legs, so that's the 8 legs. They have 1 or 2 body segments. A spider in general will have a cephalothorax and then an abdomen. And the ticks and the mites, the horseshoe crab have just 1 body segment where everything is fused together. They also have what are called pedipalps. Pedipalps are appendages that are right around where their mouth is, and they are used to eat. So they're almost like an extra set of, not a hand necessarily, but kind of a feeding, like a spoon almost, I guess, that they can use to get food into their mouth. They also will use these, some of them, during mating. They're again sensors, so they can be used for touch or even some kind of heat sensor. The chelicerates usually have 2 to 4 simple eyes, so they have multiple eyes. Again, that helps with either being aware of the predators in the area or also being better hunters. And then the last thing, depending on if they are terrestrial or aquatic, they have book lungs if they live on land. They have book gills if they are in the water. So the lungs are the land guys, and then the gills, of course, are the water. But this is basically how they get air in. They don't have lungs. This is not part of their circulatory system. The air goes straight to their organs. But it is a little bit different than a set of gills. And then spiders, I just wanted to mention, have a couple of extras. First, they have what are called Malpighian tubules, and that may very well be on your review, your terms also, so I may have missed that on the highlights. And these are basically kind of like a kidney almost, in the fact that they take out certain wastes, but they release solid nitrogen waste. So they help take certain things out of the body. And then the other special feature for a spider is our spinnerets. They are web spinners, most spiders, and so they can spin a silk for their webs. It is part of how they get their food. It is part of like how they form a shelter, kind of where they live. It also can be used in reproduction, as far as making like an egg sac or something like that. And so the picture up there has lots of things labeled on it. I just wanted you to see kind of the highlights and notice where some of the different things are. Here are, let me pick a good color that'll kind of stand out here. Here are those pedipalps, so notice they're right up there by the mouth. The, let's see, the book lungs are right here, kind of funny, kind of down, farther down on their abdomen. Notice their heart up here, remember that dorsal heart, so it's up there on their back. And then these guys, of course, have different stuff. Oh, and here they're the spinnerets for the spiders. They have a really unique digestive system that we won't go into, but notice they have a trachea kind of back towards their back end down here, but their mouth and their pedipalps are up here at the front. So it's a very, it's not quite a straight line as far as their digestive system goes. Okay, now reproduction, if they are aquatic, so if they live in the water, and these are the horseshoe crabs and things like sea spiders, it is strictly external fertilization. The females will lay their eggs somewhere, and then a male will come and release sperm to fertilize it. And so they usually have some kind of little, like little bed, or kind of like a little groove kind of dug out for the female. The females do that and to lay their eggs in, and then hope that a male will be around to fertilize them. With the terrestrial or the land-dwelling chelicerates, they have internal fertilization, and so fertilization takes place inside the female's body. So she has eggs that are fertilized by the male's sperm. Not all species of chelicerates, but a lot. You will see the female being much bigger than the male, and also in a lot of cases the female will kill the male after mating. It's not a real great thing, but that's how they reproduce. Some chelicerates will brood their eggs, which means even though they're internally fertilized, they do lay the eggs and then they protect them. Some even will carry their young for a short time. Some of you may have seen this as kind of a scary thing, like if you kill a spider in your house, sometimes a whole bunch of little baby spiders will jump off of the big spider's back and run away. Those were her babies. She was carrying them around. And so again, it's just an indication of a little bit more of an advancement. And then just some other arachnids of note. We have scorpions. They, of course, have the long whip-like tail with a stinger on the end. Some produce a sting that is similar to like being stung by a bee. It's not pleasant, but it's not terrible. Some are incredibly poisonous to larger animals. Some are very, very harmful to people. Scorpions tend to have a very long body comparatively instead of the round body that you see with the spiders. And then they have larger chelicerae, usually larger pinchers. And then the ticks and the mites, they are usually very, very small. They have one body segment. They are parasites, so they will live on the body of another mammal, live on its blood. They can be, like I said, nearly indetectable or bigger as they feed more. Okay, last thing, the chelicerates in the environment. Most of them deal with, most of the things that I'm going to mention here deal with what they eat or kind of where they live. Chelicerates are big predators. They have to eat just like any other animal. They have to eat other things. They also are eaten by quite a few other organisms. And then there are some that are parasites, and they can carry pretty serious illnesses. Lyme disease is carried by ticks. Rocky Mountain spotted fever is carried by ticks. And so they are a big part in the food chain. One of the things that they do that we need to be thankful for is that they are big controllers of the insect population. I know that my first instinct when I see a spider is to kill it, but most spiders are actually very helpful to us as far as controlling gnats and flies and other small insects. They also are big parts of the food chain in aquatic and terrestrial areas. In aquatic areas, they are kind of more towards the bottom of the food chain, the sea spiders. The horseshoe crabs are kind of in the middle. They don't have a lot of natural predators. An octopus would probably be one, but they are still in there kind of helping control other populations. And same thing with the terrestrial areas. Like I was saying before, spiders do control the population of other insects, but lots of birds will eat spiders. There are wasps that will kill spiders and use them as kind of like a brooding spot for eggs and a food source. And then the last one, this one's kind of unusual. Your book talks about the research that has been done on spider silk for the weight and the construction. Spider silk is very strong, and so being able to produce that in mass quantities is could be very useful as far as making stronger fabrics and even some protective type like vests and that kind of thing. And then horseshoe crabs, they have blue blood. It is actually a blue color, and it has been found to be a good test for bacterial infections. It has been a good indicator of the presence of bacteria on surfaces or in like a person. And so they milk these horseshoe crabs for their blood. They use it for research, and then they release the horseshoe crabs and they go on about their lives. So there's lots to be said for these chelicerates, even though, again, like I said, they're kind of the creepies. So anyway, let me know if you guys have questions, and I'll talk to you again in a few days. Bye.